one of the biggest challenges that we see is a lot of times you expose data to too many people. What winds up happening is you'll see a lot of individuals asking questions and coming to the wrong conclusions because they're not necessarily the subject matter experts. And when they start coming to the wrong conclusions, it can drive your business down the wrong path.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Tim Tutt is a proven technical leader with over a decade of software engineering experience, focused specifically developing and deploying large-scale search and discovery and data analytics solutions in both the public and private sectors. Tim is currently the CEO and co-founder of Night Shift Development, Inc., which focuses on helping organizations make sense of their data, and he's here today to talk about democratizing data. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks much, Jake. A pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Let's just jump right in because this is like a buzzword I'm seeing a lot. Democratizing data. Can you define the term and explain how it's being implemented properly and also how it's being used incorrectly?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, when we talk about democratizing data and data analytics, it's really about, how we help organizations with the mass amounts of data that they're collecting, whether that's from, user behavior, hitting websites, the data that they're buying or selling, how users are actually interacting with their systems, or, even just tracking internal sales data or HR mechanisms. How do we get that data into the hands of the right people? Because at the end of the day, most organizations, you have teams of data scientists, data engineers, highly technical individuals that are the ones drilling into that data, where the subject matter experts are a little bit more disconnected. It's actually kind of where I started in this career path. I used to be that middleman where analysts would come to me, ask questions, I go run against a supercomputer, get them an answer back. They'd then come back with more questions, and it was this wash, rinse, and repeat cycle. Really what we're trying to move towards is how do we get that data and the analysis of that data into the hands of the subject matter experts that know how to drive business with it.
Mm-hmm. And then like what it's are some people saying, oh, we democratize data? And they didn't? Like, is there some kind of way that people are faking it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you'll see a lot of platforms out there that are really more geared for, hey, we're going to make this easier, but still requires a little bit more of that technical skill set. So one of the things that we focus on is making our platform as easy to use as possible for anyone. We kind of joke that it's analytics so simple your grandma can do it, right? So let's make this as simple as possible. That hey, you don't, it's as easy as using an Apple product. We all know how it feels the first time you open up that device, and it's just intuitive and it works, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to run through a bunch of trainings. That's exactly how we built our platform for that democratization of data analytics piece here.
Nice.
But you asked another question earlier about how people are doing this incorrectly.
Right.
And I think it's a completely valid question. One of the biggest challenges that we see is a lot of times you expose data to too many people. What winds up happening is you'll see a lot of individuals asking questions and coming to the wrong conclusions because they're not necessarily the subject matter experts. And when they start coming to the wrong conclusions, it can drive your business down the wrong path. So I think it's very important as you're implementing a data democratization strategy that you understand who's getting that access and that those people have the subject matter expertise to actually know what the data means and how to interpret it and how to make the best decisions.
Man, that's that. It's so funny because there's so much data and a lot of people want it, but a lot of people are going to take the wrong thing away from it. And especially marketers. They were like, things look good. As long as everything's up and to the right, we're good.
Right.
But you bring up a really good point where it's people connecting with other people, subject matter experts and the technical experts that are making it possible. And those people working together, that is where the democratization of data starts taking off. Would you say?
Yeah, and I think again, it's how do we help those subject matter experts get the right tools and capabilities where they don't necessarily need the technical SMEs or the more technical individuals, right? The way we kind of approach this is, hey, it's Siri meets your data. It should be as simple as asking a question in pure natural language and allowing those subject matter experts to ask those questions and get back the value they need without having to have that middleman going and writing some complex query, whether that's SQL or some other
Mhm.
query language against a core data store. How do we enable those subject matter experts that know the right questions to ask and know the right follow-up questions to ask to do that, and do that very rapidly? How do we accelerate that time from, hey, I've got a question, to I've got the answers that I need to make the right decisions, from days and hours to just minutes, because I can now do this, on my own, and do that, iteration very quickly.
It's amazing. So there are so many touch points when you're talking about data and access to data and then using it to sort of get those intelligent insights. How do you help your clients facilitate the collaboration, between technical expertise and then ease of use? How do you do that without them being overwhelmed?
Yep, absolutely. So the way we've always looked at it is, hey, there are a couple of different areas in this data exploitation process, right? It's the, hey, how do I find the data that I need, get it in the right formats that I need? That's really going to be more of your more technical engineers, your more technical individuals that are finding it. They're doing the data engineering, they're cleaning that data, getting that set up. Sure, there are some things that we can do to make it simpler for everyone else to do that, but really, your data engineers are going to be your best bet to make sure the data is as clean as possible for you to do what you need to do.
Hmm.
Getting that data into your systems, still your more technical engineers that you're going to want to have. Once you've got it into a core analytics platform, though, that's where we think, it should be a subject matter expert being able to exploit that data in a very easy way. Now, there is a caveat there is, sure, you want to give them the simple things, how do we get the stats, the trends, the indicators that we care about to make, some informed decisions on what we're doing, but
Hmm.
maybe we want to get a little bit more advanced. You still give access in the platform for your more technical developers to build more interesting algorithms, something a little bit more proprietary, where you're trying to drive, maybe a core, heuristic or, prediction algorithm. You let your core engineers do those types of things, but you allow the simple things to be done by everyone else. And it frees up a whole lot of time for the rest of your technical team at the end of the day.
So, and it's interesting that democratization is not about freedom. It's about
Right.
well-defined boundaries.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe some countries listening to this podcast could listen. I'm not trying to tell you what's going on, but it's very interesting that there's sort of like there are technical experts, and just kind of putting it in towards the politicians,
Yep.
lawmakers, legislators, they understand this stuff. And then there's us over here, the
Right.
subject matter experts, just like, I don't know, setting a dumpster on fire. And then you're like, that's interesting. But it's about boundaries, freedom within that, but well defined and sort of a bit of a firewall, kind of like you have your technical stuff. If you want to get in here and make something special, please do that. But you subject matter experts and maybe some of the people at the top, the C-suite folks, you don't want them inside the data sausage machine. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to avoid that as much as possible.
Please don't touch the code.
Right.
Um, so, speaking of, all this tech, there's the future, and there's a lot of new, newish kind of approaches to this. What do you see the future of analytics being, and how do you think these trends in tech might impact society? This is a big
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no, it's a very big question. So I'll start with the small piece first, and then kind of continue to chop at it, I guess.
Yep.
Future of tech and analytics in general, and where all this is going with how tech is advancing. I mean, look, in just the last 6 to 9 months, we've seen large language models become more prevalent and more accessible to everyone with chat gpt and things like that. So now all of a sudden, analytics and the way you could potentially leverage these massive platforms becomes a lot more accessible to everyone. Again, we still run into that same problem of, hey, if you have too many people doing this, they might come to the wrong conclusions, right? And that's something that is a little worrying and dangerous. I kind of talk about, often how there are some dangers here of we may run into a space, very soon where disinformation campaigns become excessively easy because you can use things like, generative AI to look realistic, or, generative AI to look and sound and feel like a real politician, even though that wasn't that person saying that. So we've seen these things, time and time again. So there's definitely some fears that I've got about, how democratized this gets. This is why, and I think you framed it very well, well-defined boundaries when we do this. This It also leads to this interesting space of, sure, we never want to limit the advancement of technology. We want that to continue going, but what do the regulations look like? And we definitely don't want the wrong people making regulations that put boundaries on these things that limit the ability for us to continue to advance technically. But also, we don't want them um, uh, to limit the ability for small, new, innovative companies to come into a market space. This is
Right.
one of the biggest challenges that I see around technology regulation. We have people that don't really understand what those limitations would do for a newcomer coming into a market. Great, you've now got a whole lot of AI regulation, and hey, you must do this and you must have these things in place. Now it's really hard to, start a startup that's doing AI without having all of these regulations in place. And now you need a lot of money to even fund and get started. How do you even get off the ground, and how do you see more of that innovation
Right.
and improve the competition in the marketplace in general?
Well,
I think I went off on a little bit of a tangent. I hope
nah, no, no,
that
no. It was fantastic. I love that you touched on disinformation because that directly correlates with those media destinations being hinged on advertising revenue. So, whatever gets them showing up, just share it.
Yep.
Is it true? I don't know, but they're showing up, and we're selling ad real estate, so it's all good. It is sort of this. Oh, it's not related. It's totally related.
Right.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So happy that you went off on a tangent, but it made me think large language models, AI, like a lot of companies, agencies, marketing, entities, they're thinking, well, that's for the people who have the wherewithal and you have a technical team, you have subject matter experts. Most businesses don't have those. They just have a rando that's running
Right.
things. Um, like, do you have advice on why a small to medium sized business or would want to get into data, or is there just sort of like advice for the little guys out there? Because if you have money and funds, you can make it happen. You could pay to make it happen. What if
Yeah.
you don't? I mean, does AI give you like a sort of a knife to the gunfight, or what's going on?
Yeah, it's still an accelerator for
Right.
for most organizations, right? You're really looking at, hey, how do we improve our business processes? How do we make things more efficient for us? How do we get out of doing a lot of these manual, mundane tasks, right? Even something as simple as, hey, write me the skeleton for a blog post. I want you to write me a blog post on how, this piece of technology impacts, a particular business area, or write me an ad copy for, something that we're going to start pushing out there. AI is not going to get you 100% of the way there, but it'll get you 80% of the way there, 60% of the way there. And now you've minimized the amount of time you have to spend doing those things.
Mm.
So now all of a sudden you can move a lot faster. And as a small business, again, a lot of these things are becoming a lot more accessible. They're cheap. And they're getting even cheaper over time because of this broad accessibility across the board, and because we now have a lot more competition. You're looking at small amounts of investment to get massive ROI in terms of your time back, so you can focus on your core business and not focus on these other things that you don't necessarily have the time for, especially as a small business.
So, and then let's talk about this. This person's using AI, this person's using AI. And then the AI is training off another AI. And
Mm.
then every once in a while, it like, not every once in a while, but eventually there'll be some kind of model collapse, or there will be
Yeah.
this sort of level of AI cannibalization where we're not really doing things. We're just pitting AIs against AIs, comparing things. Do you see, is that one of the fears that maybe you have towards the future, a model collapse or any of those kind of things?
Yeah, I could definitely see model collapse, and you can definitely see a lot of fake data being generated and used as future training data. There's this whole space now of data synthesis that everyone talks about now, right? And they're using AI models to generate fake data. Well, if that data makes it out into the wild, into the wrong places, and someone says, "Let me go collect this and use this to build a new AI model," now all of a sudden, yeah, you start to wind up in this thing where it's just like, is this effective? That said, these models are getting smarter. The way we're building machine learning things, they're becoming a lot smarter. To where are we able to filter those things out? Are we
Right.
able to detect, some of the synthesis?
Right.
When you looked at throughout the school year, right? One of the first things that came out, you had students going out and saying, "Hey, type me a paper on, whatever history lesson they were
Yeah.
supposed to."
Yeah.
But then very quickly, you started seeing these AI detection models that were
Right.
coming out where you run this paper through and you're like, "Hey, was this written by AI or was this a human type thing?" So that becomes really interesting. How long is that going to work? Unclear. There's definitely some fear on, how smart and how well these things become, or how good these things become, to where, hey, it's not detectable by AI. I think just the other day I was looking at some platform where it said, generate a blog post that isn't, you can't detect that it was written by AI, in minutes. And I'm like, that sounds scary and fascinating. I don't know if you're actually there or not, but it'd be really interesting if that's the case, because if we're already there, yeah, that's terrifying, right?
Right, it is terrifying, but you bring up good points that there are benefits, and most times, if you have a good kind of conscience, it's about making small incremental percentages increase that can give you a little bit of an advantage.
Absolutely.
But speak really quickly about the people powered stuff. It's all data. It's all all those things. Why is it important for anyone who's using democratized data to really understand people and really understand like how people are thinking, or like just kind of talk about the softer skills of this hard tech? Is it important? How do you see that role sort of helping things along?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the number one things I've always said is, hey, listen, technology is not meant to take away your jobs. It's meant to help make you a lot more efficient so you can focus on harder problems that the computers can't solve, right? Humans are innately intuitive and creative in ways that machines just cannot be. Machines cannot be that creative. They can mimic creativity, but it's not going to be, the creation that we see in the rest of the world. So, having those same soft skills that we've had, how we understand human behavior, how we process that information, determine what to do with it in a way that is intuitive to us, but maybe not, as detectable by a machine, is a thing that's going to continue to give you that advantage. So humans will always have to be in the loop, and I think that is, the number one thing. Human in the loop in every AI, machine learning, analytics piece is absolutely critical. If you do not have that, you are going to just be, you may as well just be a machine run company. And why do you need people in the first place? And honestly, that's not going to get you as far as you think it will.
Once that model collapses, do you think there is a future where there is a completely machine run company?
It's possible. I mean, you look at what McDonald's right now, they're starting to have, remove employees in a handful of locations just to, hey, you come in. I think I just flew back from Vegas this weekend, and I saw they were building one of the new Hudson stores in the airport.
Mhm.
And they said it was going to be one that was completely driven by Amazon's new walkout technology.
Aha.
So basically, you walk in, you grab your thing, move out. There's no employees. You just keep moving. hey, maybe that actually, works effectively. But then you have this issue of, hey, what's the security look like? How do you prevent theft? How do you prevent loss and those types of things? So there's all these other bits where it's, I don't know if you can actually have a fully machine run company unless we get to, like Terminator style or iRobot type style, AI machines running around and handling those things.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, and it's interesting to say, like, one of the original problems with those Amazon no checkout things is different people of different uh,
Right.
complexions were
Absolutely.
being called out, and you're like, wait, well, no, I paid for this, but it's actually some of that soft brain thing that people
Right.
are like, hold on, a kid walking out of a store, did they pay for? I don't know, what's happening. Like, I mean, there's so many different human elements that prevent us from being automated. Maybe
Absolutely.
those are good, maybe those are bad. But that's interesting to think about. Like, it's not going to be
Yep.
the same experience for everybody, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually to that point, you talk about bias in machine learning and AI.
There you go.
There were even reports, and I think it was an Amazon model that got, originally built, but it was, running through faces of individuals and, using just the data that it was trained on, it was automatically identifying people as criminals that were not criminals,
Hmm.
but because they fit a certain profile and because of how it was trained. And this is where bias in machine learning and AI and data is immensely important. You need someone that can help filter that out. You need someone that can actually, help make sure that this thing is being fed the right things if you're going to try to rely on it. And then you're also going to need someone to quality check and validate that on the back end of it. I think
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that I think that the bias in AI field is actually going to be a huge one. How do we help validate and minimize bias, moving forward? That's going to be a huge game changer for the companies that can do that and do that right.
And do it right. You're absolutely right. But I mean, already in so many ad campaigns, you're like, did they not run this by a lady? Like,
Right.
did they not run this by, hello. Um,
Yep.
so it's a problem now. AI would only make it worse, but if you really get in there and make sure that you have people who understand systems and how people behave, you can get those biases adjusted. And I absolutely agree. If somebody can get this locked and do it in a way that's fair and balanced for everybody, wow, they're gonna take off. But story time. I need you to give me some stories. Can you
Sure.
can you give me an example of democratizing data for a client that went super well? And
Yeah.
conversely, can you give us a horror story about democratized data gone wild?
Sure. Yeah, I'll keep these a little generic, but we had one client in particular. So this guy was a CEO. He had been evaluating a handful of data sets across the board, and he was looking at buying a data set from a particular company. He threw that data set into our platform, ClearQuery, and he said within minutes, he was able to see that, hey, actually, all of the data that they're giving me is excessively uniform. It's not real. He said it saved him from making a seven-figure, buying decision mistake, right? So,
Woo!
we gave him the power to, very quickly determine, hey, is this worth my time or not? And he, saved a bunch of money on, purchasing that particular data set.
Oh
So
my gosh.
that was a huge win for us, and
Huge.
it was a huge win for us. It was also a little sad because it was during a trial. He figured that out. So I'm like, I
I
wish you were
was I
paying
was
for it before.
I was just thinking it's like, "Oh, that's good," but, oh, he didn't give us money. Oh.
Right. Like, no, we wound up, working with him later, but it was just like that was amazing. I was like, well, wow, I wish he could we have just taken a percentage fee of that? That would have been
Yeah,
fantastic.
just a slice, just a taste.
Right.
But that's amazing. I mean, there are examples of people making a bunch of money, but preventing people from spending wasted money, that's even more exciting.
Absolutely. On the flip side, yeah,
Yep.
this is, the big case of, humans, making the wrong decisions using that data, right? So, humans kind of looking at data and saying, okay, based on these trends, based on what we've seen historically, here's where we think we should go, but people not factoring in the intuitive mindsets of, hey, our sales, it looks like we're dipping here, so we need to, lower the amount of buy, but you're coming up on a holiday. So in theory, you should actually be increasing because your spend's going to increase. And that's, those are the cases that we've seen, not with our solution necessarily, but we've heard those horror stories from other clients of, hey, here's how we've had issues with democratizing data analytics. That's why we have a small team. And this is why it's important, again, to make sure that you give that access to the right subject matter experts and you make the right decisions based on someone that has not only the analysis to help drive the data driven decisions, but the ability to really think about here's why this matters or why it doesn't. If you're very early in your company and you don't have enough historical to see, yes, we do have this pop right around the holidays, sure. But if you have the intuitive mindset to think, well, yeah, holidays are coming up, and even though we haven't seen it yet, we should expect that we're going to get a little bit more and we're going to need more in our inventory. Here's a way to kind of go after it, type thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting that data can help you, but it can also trap you.
Absolutely.
If it, I had a friend who worked at Etsy. He was in the help team, and they wanted to reduce the bounce rate on the help pages. That was their main goal. Like and then he was like, but then that doesn't mean that they've engaged with us.
Right.
And
Yep.
so it's like over here, bounce rate is good, like on a landing page or something like that. But over here, actually having it a little bit higher is a good thing because it means that they're engaging with the material and
Right.
trying to find answers. And we want them to answer their own questions and rather than start a help ticket. But it was a very weird thing. And I remember him kind of coming up against the leaders being like, wait, why do we want a high bounce rate on this? And he's
Right.
like, had to explain it because he's a subject matter expert. But they didn't listen to him. So it was kind of interesting that if you really want to get these, ROI, ROAS,
Sure.
bounce rates, all those things over here, you want it like this. Over here, you want it completely different, but it's because the functionality. And if you don't know the background, like you're just going to follow the data into the ground.
Yeah, and I think this bring up a really interesting point, right? There's causation and correlation thing, right?
Mm.
You know, this is a thing that most people don't understand. How do these? Yes, it looks like these things are trending together, but are they actually trending? Is one actually influencing the other,
Yes.
or are they? Is that just a factor of something else that you're missing? And if you don't understand the data, you're not going to get to that right answer.
Oh my gosh, and that's just got to happen all the time over there in technical world. You're like,
Yep.
sorry, friends.
Right.
No, this is amazing. You've given us so much to think about subject matter experts, technical experts, marrying those two things, understanding your industry, understanding historical trends, how to democratize things with boundaries, not about freedom, giving people access to data that is just easy, but backed by serious, complex stuff. I mean, you've said so many wonderful things, but if you had to cook it all down into like maybe a bumper sticker or something, what would your one piece of advice be for the audience when it comes to democratizing data?
Ooh, and a bumper sticker. All right, this is fun.
It
uh,
could be a big bumper sticker,
a
you know.
big bumper sticker. All right. Um, Technology is meant to enable humans to be more efficient. So analytics should be enabling your experts to make better decisions overall. In a
Done.
nutshell, that's it.
That's perfect. I love it. You're amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. If people want to connect with you and learn more about you online, Tim, how can they do that?
Absolutely. Well, obviously you can find us at clearquery.io. That is our platform, our website for the web for ClearQuery. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I am n/Tim Tutt. I am also on the new Threads platform, Tim.Tut. I am basically Tim Tutt on most of the social media platforms. One exception being Twitter, where I am Tim F. Tutt because I did not grab it soon enough. There's apparently another Tim Tutt running around there masquerading as me. But yes, you can find me on most social media as Tim Tutt there. And, I look forward to connecting with anyone that wants to reach out.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
Cheese or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Road trip or fly?
Fly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Good luck to everybody who likes to drive. God bless you. Do you have a strict out of office policy, or do you do a little work on vacation?
I work on vacation. I personally do, but I actually yell at people that work on vacation.
Don't be like me, is what you say.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. It was like, hey, do as I say, not as I do.
Please. That's great. This gets contentious. Prince or Marvin Gaye?
Ooh, Prince.
I know. I felt bad. I was like,
I love Marvin Gaye, but Prince is, it's Prince.
I mean, and Marvin Gaye, I read a bio of him, and when Prince came out, Marvin was like super worried. He was like, oh no.
Yep.
Who is this tiny guy from Minnesota stealing all my shine? So anyway, Chicago pizza or New York pizza?
Ooh, this is actually more contentious than the last one, I think.
Whoa!
I think, New York pizza just has something special about it.
Yeah.
There's something about the water that's in it.
But
I love the style of Chicago pizza. So I actually don't know. Both? I like it all.
No, Tim, you cannot do that.
I gotta pick. If I gotta pick, I'm going with New York.
Just because it's classic.
It is classic.
I know. You can't argue with it. I'm glad you made that point about the water, because I've heard that in certain circles, and I'm like, it's true. Okay, and finally, throw pillows. Are they necessary or unnecessary?
Unnecessary.
You just know this.
I do not think throw pillows are necessary whatsoever. They are purely decorative.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social, and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.